ahead and get the, our borough workshop meeting for December 7th, 2022, going. Want to call to order, roll call?
President Ferguson,
Here.
Vice President Gerard,
Here.
Councilmember Fagan,
Here.
Councilmember Dresser, here, Councilmember Stevens, Mayor Gerard,
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder,
Here.
Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here.
Right. All right, we'll hit item number 1, approval of the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions or changes? Having none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? There are none. All right, item 2, public input. Anyone from the public, please rise, state your name and address, and the reason for addressing council today. And if you can't speak into the microphone.
Gabriel Boyer, Edgewood Drive, Hatfield, PA. And I'm here regarding to different issues that's going on in the property adjacent to my property, Edgewood Park.
And sorry, that's Edgewood Park, is it?
Edgewood.
Okay.
And, I know underneath when you get a permit, it says you're supposed to display it, so it can be seen from the street. But a certain person that is doing his property, which I understand is supposed to be a footprint in construction. He's wanting a lot more than that. Matter of fact, I was talking to my neighbor, and he came in the driveway, stopped and started cussing me out, and Rich, because we were talking, well, what are you doing? Trying to find some more crap to get against me? I said, and he's yelling, oh, I'm an alien U.S. citizen. I said, okay, did you learn to read? What? Where's your permit? Oh, in the back of the car. I said, what, you want to park your car out in the street so everybody can see it? No, I don't have to. Oh, you don't have to? Okay. And he had his construction people there with a huge truck, trailer, with a lot of heavy equipment on it, parked on Edgewood Drive, right past the Borough Road access that goes into that back past the park. And I said to him, I said, what are you parking in your equipment? It's not mine. I said, you're paying them people, right? Yeah. Well, then it's your obligation to tell them they can't park there without safety cones. So it was there almost the whole week. And when they did finally put a cone out, they put one in the front, and they put it directly almost in front of the truck instead of out to tell the people, here's the edge of my equipment. And he just kept going on and on and on, and I said, you know what? You can't holler for me talking to my neighbor. And I thought when somebody's going to do a project like that, they're supposed to send out letters and have a meeting to get our input. I never got it. And the property that was on Blind Street, they got to put that huge barn or garage up that he says is collecting old cars and stuff. I never got a letter for that thing either. So what I'm wondering is, why do we have rules when all of a sudden they're getting changed to go to some other people? And I hate to say it, but what are they spending the money for? Or who's getting the money? Or where's it going? Because I put a deck on, I put a driveway on, I got a permit. I showed it the way it's supposed to be. And there's another thing that is concerned about the burning in the borough. I think something ought to be done to the people that own the properties around to tell the people who are renting to, you're not supposed to burn in the borough. Because everybody that comes into the house next to me, I gotta go over and tell them, hey, before you get locked up, stop burning. Why? You're not supposed to burn in the borough. So I don't know what's going on, and also that park, it's just nobody in there after dusk. Well, I got tired of calling the police because I was saying, I'm going to get locked up and call the police. The kids hang out down in the back corner, yell and carry on. As soon as the officer comes and he leaves, they're all spread out and gone. But then, 10 minutes after they think he ain't around, they're back in there. He said a couple of the officers pulled them, went around the block, and came back and fought him. So I don't think anything can be done about it, but that's, you know, my concerns about it, and I don't like somebody that wasn't born in this country to tell me I can't talk to my neighbor. And he was saying, oh, yeah, I'll allow to do anything I want. I said, well, get off my street, because he was parked on the access road. And I said, that belongs to me in the borough, not you. And he, well, you can't tell me what to do. I said, okay, I'll make sure I put some word out for you. So that's why I'm here.
I think the
Goodness.
borough manager can address some of this, and I can address some of it, so.
So in relation to the parking issue that Mr. Boyer brought up about an oversized tractor trailer and truck parked on Edgewood Drive, per our ordinance, you are not allowed to park oversized tractor trailer or truck on Edgewood Drive. The owner, Mr. Rita, was notified that he was not allowed to park his oversized tractor trailer and truck on Edgewood Drive, and was asked to please remove that. Lieutenant Robertson from the police department was copied on all correspondence with Mr. Rita. Per our ordinance, Mr. Rita did have the option to ask the borough manager to allow him to park that truck on a street, and I did allow that. I allowed Mr. Rita to park through November 28th on what we would call the circle, not on Edgewood Drive, which is the dead end adjacent to Edgewood Park. He did, however, leave his oversized truck and tractor trailer as of December 1st. It was still parked on the circle. I did send him an email and again copied the Lieutenant Robertson on that email, telling him that he did not have permission to continue to leave his truck on that road and that it needed to be removed immediately. So he did have permission, as I stated earlier, to park on the circle for a short amount of time, but not as long as he was, because he was in violation of the borough ordinance. And I do know that the Hatfield Township Police Department was out there and did make contact with him to make sure that his vehicle was registered, as it was not at first. And I'm not aware if he did receive any tickets for being parked there without permission from the borough manager. And he did move it as I drove by today, and it, or was yesterday, and it was moved.
Found out that we had a rain after he did move to Redwood Drive. That there was rainbow, was his equipment losing oil or something. And that stuff's going down in the rain because the rain's washing it out. So he was, whatever it was, and it could have been the help with the two trucks too, because they were parking in the same area. And the one truck that was there, the pickup, I was looking to see if it was legal and inspected. And the sticker that's on it looked like it was taken off of a windshield and put in that truck. It was all crumbling and
Let me address some of the other issues that you brought up. Our council might remember this property because it actually was in front of us for certain approvals. It was a single family house that had to be replaced. It had a driveway that went out to, oh yeah, Airport Road, the other way, Town Medicine. But that had a stream in the front yard, and they came in and asked if they could come out on Edgewood. And the borough agreed and gave them a non-exclusive easement over our drive. We have a driveway that goes right to his house, basically, and it's for use of the borough to get to an electric pole that is in that area, okay? So Borough Council did give him permission to use it. To the best of my knowledge, he did get a building permit for the house. How it works, sir, is if if you want to do something that you're not allowed to do, that's not in keeping with the zoning ordinance, then you go to the zoning board, and then all the neighbors get notices, and they can come out and object or whatever to whatever it is you want to do. But if what you're doing is permitted by the zoning ordinance, and a single family house is permitted on that lot, then you apply for a building permit, and as long as your building plans are in conformity with the zoning, you're gonna get the building permit without notifying the neighbors. As it turns out, the neighbor to the front, Mr. Christopher, was on the phone talking to our borough manager right away and telling her all the things that were not going correctly. So she alerted the police and alerted the code officer to get these things straightened out. So if you see a problem like that, there's no harm in picking the phone up and giving us a call at the borough so that Jamie can get the code officer if he's here, or she herself, if he's not here, to deal with it. But he is supposed to be following the same rules as everybody else.
Yeah, but I was under the impression that it was supposed to be a footprint building.
Well, it's gonna be a single family house. If it's not where it's supposed to be, we should send the code officer out, check. Okay? But the footprint means if he's building a new house in the old footprint where the old house used to be, he should be allowed to do that. It's a single family lot. And it's a single family house that he's going to build. So that's what he told the borough.
Right, well, he told other people not that, he's talking like a 15,000 square foot house, he said that.
Okay, so if he builds a 15,000 square foot house, the code officer is going to cite him for not building in accordance with the building permit application that he submitted. So, but if you see that happening, there's no harm in you letting the borough know, so that the borough can take action on it. But, you know, if he's building what he said he's building, he's only building a single family house, and he's allowed to do that.
Right.
Because there used to be a single family house there.
But what makes it, okay that he rides around with a permit in the back of his vehicle?
He's supposed to post a permit where it can be seen.
That's what I told him, that I don't have to.
Right, well, we'll have to talk to the code officer and have him go out and talk to him.
Yeah, I believe, Ms. Boyer, after you were in last week and spoke to Katie, about, Mr. Rita not posting his property, Katie and I specifically spoke to Bob Heil in the code department and asked him to go out and check and make sure that the property was posted. So if that wasn't taken care of, I apologize, and I certainly will talk to Bob when he's in the office tomorrow morning and make sure that that property is posted with the permit that is supposed to be out there for building construction.
Okay, so what I have to do though, the next time I'm talking to the neighbor, he stops in the driveway and starts giving me a lot of crap, I will please.
Lieutenant Jane's here and she's not, okay? She's sitting right behind you. She's a member of the Hatfield Township Police, the police is the borough. They can do that. Nobody has a right to tell you you can't talk. And that is public land and you're allowed to be there.
And that's what I told him.
Right, you're absolutely right.
He just telling me, oh, I'm a white Indian, I'm a US citizen. He said, well, you never took a reading for it. You would have that permit out where you can see it.
Well, we're trying to correct the code violations, and not having a permit would be one of them, but you have a right to be in that park. You have a right to be, you know, to say what you think and, you know, all that. You have a right to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, there was one other question too about burning.
Oh, yeah.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Solicitor, if, we've experienced this before, so if someone is burning and they're not supposed to be burning, the general rule is called fire department. And they'll come out and deal with it.
Now, just so you know, though, on the agenda tonight, we have an ordinance that expands burning.
It's
You're
not
not-
trash,
yeah,
it's
you're not
not
allowed to burn
debris,
trash.
but, you know, you can use it
Right,
for
right, right.
recreational.
These are pits, the fire pits and burning trash. But the owner of the property doesn't tell the people when they rent it to them that they're not allowed to do that.
well, they can get cited, and so they're not allowed to burn trash. In fact, the ordinance we're considering tonight expands recreational burning, you know, if you have like a fire pit or something like that. But you're still not allowed to burn trash, so they should not be doing that.
Okay, now, I have a fire pit, I'm allowed to use it, I hope, because it's a natural gas.
Previously, the borough ordinance only permitted cooking devices. And so if you could cook on your natural gas, fine. But after tonight, I'm assuming this is going to pass, because we've been working on it for a couple months now, and everybody's in favor of it. After tonight, you'll be able to do recreational burning that you don't have to cook on. We were trying to distinguish between burning trash and burning a cookout, like a grill for hamburgers, and we did that. But then now many people like yourself will prefer to have some recreational burning. So after tonight's ordinance passes, then you'll be perfectly legal.
Well, good, because the boss said she wanted that, and kids bought it for her, so I had put a big cement slab back there, because that brings up another thing about the engineer came in, because the lot, the pit, the property behind us is always full of water. And the guys put the garage up. Before that, the engineers came in and surveyed the whole thing, all the way up past Sal Delizio's house. And for some reason, the project got in action. So they started taking from Line Street, coming up, and then they put a grate to catch the water. But someone from the borough came out and told, stop, you're not going any further. So it went up 3 properties. So then that's why I had to put the cement slab in to put the pit up, because all the water comes in 2 houses up from me, comes over the next property and gets me. And I had to do something because I had a flood all the time, the water underneath my cross space.
Okay, we're probably getting beyond tonight's, agenda, but let me just tell you, stormwater law in Pennsylvania is, if you're downstream, the water has a right to flow downhill. Now, somebody can't put a pipe on their property and push it onto yours. And the borough does from time to time get grants and do stormwater projects. In fact, you got a grant, they're gonna be doing another stormwater project, but not here, right? So from time to time, the borough does try to help out with that, and when someone builds a development, we make them control all the stormwater on their property.
I realize that.
But a single family house, it falls back to general
It's not a
Pennsylvania
single
law.
family. Scout house all the way down to Line Street is
Right.
18 houses.
But if the water has a right to flow downhill, the law of gravity supersedes every other law.
Why
Okay.
did the borough get the engineers to come out and find out what the problem was? And then do 3 houses up, and then somebody told them, stop, you're not going up any further.
Well, I'm gonna ask the
That's
borough
been
manager
about, that's
to
been
talk
about,
to the borough engineer about, and I'm not aware of that.
that was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm not aware of that. The only thing I'm aware of is, Mr. Lucier, who you're referring to, who went through, I would say a land development, or not land development, but came in and got approval, conditional use approval to put that garage in his backyard. And that was, right, and it incorporated putting a basin in the back for, stormwater management. That's 3 properties up, and that's where the runoff is from.
Right, but the part I'm talking about with when the engineers were in, part of the borough, just before that. It's good 4 or 5 years before that.
I can talk to Chad Camber from Burschitz. We've had Burschitz for many years now, and I can talk to him about the location that you're referring to and what past history on that, and try to understand that area a little bit better for stormwater management and what you're referring to.
Okay.
You
Thank
want to
you.
give your contact information? Do you have it tonight? Okay, she can get in touch with you with that.
Okay. Yeah, she knows who I am.
Anyone else? All right, so now we'll go to item 3, announcements.
Next council meeting is December 21st, regular meeting at 7:30 PM here in council chambers. HROC is scheduled to meet Wednesday, December 21st at 8 AM here in council chambers. The borough offices will be closed from 12 PM to 1:30 PM for employee training on Tuesday, December 20th. The borough offices will be closed Friday, December 23rd and Monday, December 26th in observance of Christmas Eve and the Christmas holidays. The borough offices will be closed Friday, December 30th and Monday, January 2nd, 2023 in observance of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day holidays. And the next planning commission meeting is scheduled for December 12th at 7 PM here in council chambers. And that is a rescheduled meeting from December 5th. So there was an inability of members to attend the planning commission meeting on Monday. So it was rescheduled till December 12th.
All right, any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to item 4, public hearing for ordinance number 547, and I will turn it over to the solicitor.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have, this is the ordinance regarding, burning for recreational purposes. This is ordinance number 547, and we do have a court reporter who is taking notes tonight. In case there's any questions later. So before we start, I'm going to mark as exhibits 2 things. The first is a copy of ordinance 547, and ordinance amending chapter 7 of the Borough of Hatfield Code entitled Fire Prevention and Fire Protection to add requirements for residential outdoor fires. We'll call that Borough 1. And I'm also going to mark a 2-page affidavit of publication from 21st Century Media News Group, which is basically the reporter newspaper, and we'll call that Borough 2. This is just proof that we advertise this ordinance as required by law. So at the present time, what we normally do is we take questions from current council, then we open it up to the floor to see if anybody in the audience has questions, and then we go from there. There you go.
Yeah, so I'll open up. Anyone from council or mayor have any questions on the ordinance? Okay. Anyone from the public? Wow, I think this is about the fastest discussion we've ever had, so. All right, if there are no questions, I will close that portion of the discussion.
And there were no public comments. So this is on the agenda for action later this evening. Okay? So moving on, the second hearing, which is number 5 on your agenda, is ordinance 548. These are going to be 3 different transcripts until the reporter, thank you. But we'll just keep going so we get them done. This is regarding animals on leashes. Okay, so ordinance number 548. I'm going to mark 2 exhibits here. We'll give these the same numbers as previously because they're separate transcripts. Okay, so Borough 1 is a copy of ordinance 548. An ordinance amending chapter 2 of the Borough of Hatfield Code entitled Animals to add requirements for the responsible handling and leashing of dogs or other pets. This ordinance basically says that any person who has custody of a dog or other pet must have the pet on a leash, not exceeding 6 feet in length, and accompanied by a person who is fully able to control the dog or pet at any time. This is going to apply when the dog or pets are on public spaces, public rights of way, alleys, including parks, sidewalks, and public streets. So I'm marking that as a Borough 1, and that is the ordinance we are discussing right now. Borough 2 is a 2-page exhibit from Media News Group, 21st Century Media, which proves that we published this one time in the reporter newspaper. Okay, And that shows that we are entitled to hold a hearing tonight on ordinance number 548 regarding leashing of animals. I know Borough Council has been discussing this for months, but as before, we'll start first with questions for Borough Council and then see if anybody in the public has questions.
Okay. So, any questions for council, for the mayor? Okay, any questions from the public? Having none, I will close the question period.
I would just like the transcript to reflect the fact that we do have a member of the Hatfield Township Police here, because I think the idea for this ordinance originally came from the Township Police. So just want to make note that she's here in attendance at our hearing. Okay, no.
Having none, I guess we'll close questions.
And should we call out your name, Lieutenant Jane Robinson? Okay, we'll put that in transcript. Okay. All right, I guess we're ready to move on.
Yeah, so item 6, public hearing for ordinance 549, amending the zoning code of ordinances to add the requirements for placement of collection bins.
Right.
Item 6.
Okay, like before, I'm gonna mark 2 exhibits. The first is a copy of the ordinance 549, amending chapter 27 of the Borough of Hatfield Code entitled zoning to add requirements for the placement and use of collection bins. This also came out of committee and you've been discussing it for a long time, but it basically limits where those clothing and material bins can be located in the borough, and they are permitted in certain districts and not in others. They are permitted in the industrial district or the commercial district. And there's a limit on the number of bins you can have on any property. So that would be Borough 1 is a copy of the ordinance. And this proof of publication is a little bit different than others you have done. But once again, it is a 2-page exhibit. And we're going to call the proof of publication Borough 2 from Media News Group and 21st Century Media, indicating that it was published in the Reporter newspaper. What's different about this one is it was actually published twice because of the land use ordinance. It required more advertising. 2 publications at least a week apart, at least a week before tonight's meeting. So those exhibits show that this matter is properly before Borough Council for a hearing tonight.
And I'll open up questions to council.
I do have one question of this, and my question is, and just to refresh my memory, who's responsible for enforcing this? Is it the police department or is it our code officer? Who's going to be responsible for enforcing this?
That's a good question. I would think in general, it's our code officer, but I'm gonna defer to Lieutenant Jane Robertson, so you can mention. what
We
you
can also enforce that. We do that also with the township.
Okay.
But we do try to educate first, and then if we have to deal with repeat offenders, that's when we can start doing the ordinance citation.
All right, thank you.
Okay. The problem with these collection bins, as I think Borough Council has discussed, is that if they're full and not picked up regularly, the stuff expands all over the public space, like sidewalks, things like that. Was your question related to this one, or is it related to the fire?
To the events.
The bins, okay, yeah, so we can both do it, but of course our code officer can also do it if it hangs around or if it's in a place that's inappropriate.
The only question I have is, there were 2 businesses that were going to be impacted by this. Was there any comment from them about that?
No, there was no comment about that, but if it passes this evening, Bob is aware that he needs to contact those 2 businesses and give them a grace period of when they would have to have their bins removed
Okay.
to fall in compliance with this ordinance.
Okay.
Right, because neither one of those businesses is in the zones where it's permitted.
Right. I just didn't know if anyone had reached out, if they were aware that this was coming, so it sounds like they were not, or they probably would have said something, so.
Maybe, but that's why we advertise.
Right, right, okay. Any other questions? Council? How about the public? Open questions to the public?
Okay. I get to go into
Sir, could you state your name again, please?
Pardon?
Could you state your name?
Robert L. Boyer. 462 Edward Drive, Hatfield Borough, 19440.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, my wife and I, we walk our dog up and down Edgewood, Dimension, Lime Street. And we always carry a giant bag along, to collect all the trash to the people. Especially in the park there, they sit on the bench and throw the trash right on the ground. And there's the bed to put it. So we go around and pick all that stuff up in the wall and the dog. So I throw mine in the too, because of that. So, you know, you pick it up, the trash, the tape, you all over. So, yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
thank you for doing that. These bins are not trash bins. These are bins for collecting like old clothes and stuff.
Oh, okay, now I'm talking trash here.
Yeah, no, we're not doing anything to the trash bin.
Okay. Yeah, because the wife always says, why don't they put one over here so we can put more trash? I said, yeah, that's okay.
Or she should make that suggestion to Jamie. We'll look and see if we can do that.
I
Thank you for picking up.
have enough things to do. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I guess I'll close the question period.
Right,
I was listening.
I guess we can close the hearing. I don't think we need the court reporter to stick around. The minutes will reflect whether these ordinances pass or not. So we can do that later, if you like, as a schedule on the agenda. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send us the transcripts and the bill.
All right, going on to the next item, item 7, the 23 North Main Street, Arbor Grove Development Sketch Plan Presentation has been moved to the 21st of December, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then we'll go on to item 8, the 2023 preliminary budget presentation.
At the last meeting, we went, pretty heavily into the 2023 budget. So, at this meeting, I'm just gonna highlight, I've had some interactions with some residents, they've asked some questions. I felt if one resident asked a question, a few other residents can have the same question, so I'm gonna address those items, as we move forward through the budget. As previously, we talked about the only addition to this budget, from the last budget, but we did talk about the meeting is the pole replacements. Listed was 40,000 in the last budget, in this budget it's 50,000, but we did talk about that at the last meeting, so nothing else has changed. We still have no revenue increase in, taxes, so it's proposed to keep the taxes at 3 mils for the general real estate and 0.25 mils for, fire service in the 2023 budget. Moving just down through, the general fund revenues, I had a question of what the pole rental fee was on page 2, and just want to clarify that for revenues, the pole rental fee is what Hatfield Borough gets in revenues for those who are wishing to attach to our utility poles. Since we own and operate our own electric system, we do own some of the poles in Hatfield Borough, and if anybody would like to attach their equipment to our poles, they are required to go to a pole attachment agreement with us and pay a fee, and that's where that revenue comes from in the budget. The next item I wanted to touch on in the general fund revenues was rent from the SEPTA property. I've had a few questions, just go into a little bit more explanation about what that revenue and expenditures prepared to look like or proposed to look like in 2023. So we're proposing a revenue of $12,000 from a lease agreement that we are currently working through the process with of SEPTA for the 11 North Market Street property, which is, if you would refer to the old wood burners or the old SEPTA property downtown, maybe a block down from the firehouse. So we're proposing a $12,000 revenue from this project. In expenditures, we have marked that we will spend $55,000 to upgrade that property. So as our agreement is with SEPTA, or our proposed agreement, because it wasn't brought to a public meeting, we're still working through the lease agreement. It will be on a public meeting for discussion when we get to that point, is we're working through this long-term lease agreement with SEPTA. SEPTA did an assessment of the property and said that we have to bring it up to rentable standards, and had said that that would cost us roughly $55,000. So Hatfield Borough, working on this lease agreement with SEPTA, is committing $55,000 to upgrade the 11 North Market Street property. Once this property is upgraded, we can then rent it out to a tenant who will then pay Hatfield Borough rent. And that's where the $12,000 comes in for revenues of what we're estimating. My public works director and myself, and along with budget, finance, and labor, think we are hoping we can have this out and be able to be rented somewhere in early fall, due to just the work that needs to be done on the property. How this works for Hatfield Borough is proposed those first 2 years with SEPTA, Hatfield Borough would not be paying SEPTA rent for that property. So that's where the $55,000 comes in as like a credit to Hatfield Borough. Though we're not receiving cash back, or we're not receiving anything like that, we won't be paying SEPTA rent for the first 2 years in full, and then an additional $1,000 off of our rent as the proposed rent schedule looks like moving into 2023. Again, this would be on for public discussion and input at a future council meeting. We just wanted to be proactive before we had the lease, that if we move forward with the lease, we could then have something budgeted for 2023 that we're able to make these updates and do these changes that are needed. The property wasn't sitting still for 1 year, and we weren't getting any of that rent credit, essentially, because the sooner that we bring that property up to rent standards, the sooner we rent it out, the sooner we start receiving revenue that we're essentially not paying back to SEPTA, because we have 2 years break. So that's kind of the concept or the idea of the SEPTA property. We have had inquiries about the property. There are interested people who want to rent the property. We're just not there yet, and we're not there yet with the lease. That's why it hasn't been on for discussion in a public meeting, but it will be when we get there.
If I can add on to that too, I know that some people may have questions about why we want to rent the property and take on that responsibility. When SEPTA offered it to us, we basically said, we want to take on responsibility because we want to have some control over that. We've seen in the past companies that want to come in and use it as a dumping ground. And so we know that would diminish our borough, as small as it is. In fact, it is centrally located, would have a significant impact. So that's the main reason why we want to rent it and have that control of the property going forward. So.
Is there any chance that there would be grants available that would help us with that $55,000 fee?
Sure, I think it's always, I think it's always something we can explore. It becomes a little tricky when you're not the owner of the property. So even though it would, when you get into grants, a lot of times you have to show your ownership or how you are, and we're not the owner of the property. We're just the renter and then renting it to somebody else. So that sometimes becomes tricky with grants. But I know there is revitalization grants and like downtown funds that are through the state of Pennsylvania that you can look for improving properties, especially blighted properties. That's a big thing in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure there's grant funds. I'm not sure, to be honest, the stipulations, because we're not the owner of the property. But it's definitely something I can look into. One of the next questions I had was from the general fund expenses for code update services. I know we've spoken about this previously, but just wanted to highlight that we went through the codification period for code, and that is why the expenses were listed at $13,000 for 2022. The reason they dropped to $2,000 in 2023 was because that's the maintenance fee to host e-code online, where you can go to Hatfield Borough website. I know the police use it frequently to check our ordinances. You can just go online and the ordinances are available, and that's just the fee that we pay for to host our code services. Another question that was asked was difference in the building maintenance and building repair expense in the general fund and across all three funds. That starts on page 8. As I spoke about, I think last meeting was The reason that it's up so high is $22,000 of that was projected for the replacement of 2 garage doors. And that was when we had our insurance come in, and they do an insurance audit every year, our liability and property insurance came in, and we're required to replace those 2 doors per our insurance audit. And the public works director got a rough estimate of $22,000. It doesn't mean that that's what it's gonna cost. It means that that's the proposals that we're going through. Currently, if it was $22,000, it would have to go out to bid per the 2022 bid threshold standards. 2023 has not been released yet, so I would assume that it would go up because it was 21.9 is the standard, and anything above 21.9 for 2022 has to go out to bid. Normally every year they go up from the labor and industry department. They just haven't been released yet. So, I'm unaware if that project's gonna go out to bid or not next year, just based on the quotes that we get. If it's not, we still will be required to get 2 or 3 telephone quotes that the public works director will take care of.
Right, I think there's a very good chance that that bid limit will go up. Because inflation is up, so usually they fix the bid limit to go up with inflation so that we don't spend more money putting something out to bid and advertising all that jazz than the project's worth.
On page 11, when we are still in the general fund and across all 3 funds, it was questioned why there was such a significant increase in contracted services for vehicle maintenance and repair. The reason of the significant increase is, year to date, we are actually, roughly $27,000 for maintenance for our vehicles. We do not, and budgeted was 13.5. We are not proposing any capital, project vehicle expenditures for next year, meaning we're not looking to buy any vehicles. We're looking to maintain the ones that we currently have. And unfortunately, older vehicles come with more maintenance costs. So we had to reflect what we spent in the budget this year, and that's why we increased it to, what we did proposed for 2023. I'm moving to the electric fund to speak about the revenue increase for the electric that's proposed in this budget. So there is a proposed increase of $3 per month for your electric RE and G1 customers, which are residential customers and some commercial customers, for the customer flat fee. Currently, the customer flat fee is $12 a month. It is projected or proposed to go to $15 a month, which is $36 annually, but will give us a revenue estimated of $51,000. So again, that's just an increase from right now. Currently, the flat rate is $12. It would go to $15, but that would generate roughly $50,000 in revenue to the borough projected for 2023. Moving forward with the electric fund expenditures on page 20, it was asked about bulbs and fixtures and why the increase from $10,000, which we roughly spend every year, to $16,000, which we're proposing for 2023. The Public Works Department, the Public Works Director, is looking to switch the light bulbs from the standard light bulbs that we currently have, moving to LED. We've talked about doing this process for a while now, and that's why it's budgeted roughly $6,000 more to accomplish this. We had figured that I think you might get 100,000 hours out of an LED light versus 10,000 hours out of a standard light. I mean, there's a significant difference and a significant cost savings. We have to put the money up front, but of course we would recoup that money over a longer period of time. I know Steve likes to talk about when we placed the Victorians downtown and moved to LED. I'm not sure we ever had to go back and maintenance them. They've been down there since we placed them to LED for many, many years now. So we're moving towards that, just as a lot of other municipalities are in the area, because you'll see a long-term cost savings with that. On the next page, page 21, I just wanted to highlight that the small borrowing is now back in there. So this is to repay ourselves for the AMI system. So Hatfield Borough took the money from ourselves, basically borrowed $400,000 from ourselves from our investments to pay for the AMI system. We want to pay ourselves back for that. We suspended that for 2022, just as we were kind of scrunched on revenues last year. We believe this year we can put that back in the budget to continue our promise to ourselves to pay ourselves back for the AMI system with an interest rate of 4%. So that's the $99,000 that's in the electric fund expenditures. We're moving on to page 24 of the budget, sewer fund revenues. Wanted to highlight that in the proposed 2023 budget, there is a small increase of $5 to the flat EDU charge that customers pay quarterly. So currently your quarterly charge is $45 for your EDU. It is projected or proposed to go to $50 per EDU. That would be a total for residential customers of $20 annually increase. And projected income on that is roughly $33,000 in revenues that Hatfield Borough will get from increasing the EDU flat rate charge from $45 to $50. Moving on to capital projects, just wanted to highlight that the PAH2O and PA Small Water Grant is in revenues that we'd be getting those grant funds in of over $1 million. Same with the EV charging station grant of $5,000. And the expenditures are also listed in the capital projects. Also in this budget, we are proposing to do a road, mill, and overlay for East School, Forest, and Orchard, roughly $109,000. And I believe those are all the major highlights or the questions that have come up over the past several weeks from residents from our last council meeting that I just wanted to highlight. As I said, if one resident asked, maybe if you had the same question.
Any questions from councilwoman?
I did have one question. Under insurance for property, liability, and auto insurance. Let me just go back up. It looks like. Page 12. Looks like it was budgeted in 2022 for 15,000 roughly, and 2023 will be $23,000. I was just wondering if there was if you had any other information on the increase in I guess that's the general property, liability, and auto insurance for everything.
Yeah, so property and liability insurance increase is 26% this year. The reason it's gone up is we're in a truck pool with everybody for health, property and liability, and workers' comp. And when Ida came through, two things. When Ida came through last year, there was a significant damage in our region, and we have to bear that burden of that damage along with everybody that's in the trust pool. And because most of our property is located in the floodplain, that increased our costs. That's just where we're located. So because if you're in a floodplain, you have to incur more costs. This just how it was because of Ida. Also, cybersecurity is another really big issue. So there's guidelines and stuff that Hatfield Borough has to meet, and I believe we had budgeted $7,000 to meet some cybersecurity guidelines. We did some of that this year. We'll continue to do some of that next year. And cybersecurity was just another reason why the insurance has gone up. So yeah, it was a significant increase from last year, roughly 26%.
And are all the policies through one company, you know?
Yeah, so we are in that trust pool, which is the Delaware Valley Insurance Trusts. So they work with Insurance Buyers Council, who's like the underwriters for all of them. So yes, can they go out and purchase different policies? Sure, but we're all under their umbrella because it's like a pool, like a trust pool that we are in with multiple municipalities in this area and Bucks County, even some down in New Jersey. Yeah.
In the past, it's always been a benefit, but because of Ida and the other storms we've had, that's why we're getting hit this year with this for next year.
Thank you.
Questions from the public? All right. If there are none, we'll go on to item 9, reports from standing committees and the mayor. Budget, finance, and labor. Biggest thing we just did was finish the budget, so I believe that'll be on for voting for next meeting on the 21st.
We have to
again-
vote tonight to advertise,
Okay, right.
because we have to leave it, available to the public for 10 days.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, I wanna compliment, the team, Jamie and her team, for all the work that was put in on this. There was a lot of effort, there was a lot of back and forth about what we're gonna put in, what we're gonna take out. And, you know, I think we've done a good job with that. You guys did a great job, with minimal impact to the public. So as we mentioned during the last meeting, you know, we've got significant increases in electricity. I believe those were increasing by like 11%. So there's a lot of expenses that we all know, with cost of inflation right now, and the fact that we're only asking residents for a very, very small increase over a year, I think is very significant. And so I don't know that a lot of other municipalities are able to bear the brunt of that the way we are. So, so again, I just want to compliment the team for the work done. So. All right. Sorry, Rich, what? I thought you said, so, okay, all right, how about the planning, building and zoning?
So, Larry is unable to be with us since being the chair of the planning, building and zoning, but I do know that, planning and building and zoning will be meeting after the first of the year to continue to discuss, chickens that we talked about in the past. We just got through these 3 ordinances that are tonight. That was really big on our 2022 to-do list. They have some things they have to look at for regulations for chickens, and then we're gonna get that off to the solicitor, and then there'll be something you'll see, hopefully earlier in 2023.
We also were talking about a renter, change policy as well.
Yeah, that is something that's on the list too for 2023, looking for, instead of, we just have fire safety right now, but it would be like a renter program where landlords would have to be held to a certain standard, and every time there would be a tenant change, they would have to continue to meet that standard, to be able to be landlords in the borough. Similar to Ben Salem, Lansdale, are 2 that I know that have that program already.
Okay, so that'll be at the same time we're doing the chicken orders.
Yeah, I think they'll talk about both at the same time.
Yeah, I remember, I think we're gonna try and squeeze it in this year, and then, I think it was just too much, so.
At least you got 3 done, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Any questions? All right, public safety.
We have not met recently, so there's no updates as of right now.
Okay. No questions on that either. We'll go to public works and property equipment.
Public Works Committee, the Property and Equipment Committee has not met as well, but I do hope to meet by the next month's meeting.
Questions for them? All right, how about utilities?
We just had a meeting, before the, beginning of this meeting tonight to address some issues with the, AMP, meter, problems. And, happy to report that, seems that that's been taken care of now. And hopefully we won't have any recurrence of it in the future.
Any questions for Rick?
I know it was, is it up and running? Is it about behind the meter? Or is that what we're talking about?
Yes, that, well, not that, we had some issues with some meters and, it was fine. We weren't getting, readings through the port.
Oh.
So there was some sort of a problem and it has been addressed and hopefully it won't come.
But is the behind the meter thing yet?
Yes.
It is, okay, good. Yeah,
Great job.
that's very good, that should save some money.
Yeah, starting, I think it's what, February, will be the first, the winter.
Should be, yes.
Okay. Any questions for utilities? All right, how about, Hurrock?
Herrick has not had not meet recently. However, we do continue to honor our businesses in the month.
All right, then we'll go on to, the mayor's report.
I have nothing to report at this time.
If there's no other questions, we'll go on to item 10, reports and correspondence, monthly investment reports.
Monthly investment report was included in your packets. I will just highlight, of course, down again this year, or this month. That seems to be continuing what we look at, though I will say it's a lot smaller than last month. Our losses, as the capital reserve was down 5% in September, only 1.6 in October. So we're still trending down, not trending down as hard. I do know that budget, finance, and labor are looking at options for the investments. We would like to see where we're at month end November, before we decide what we would like to do with our investments. So we want to ride it out, keep it here, put some money in some notes, or try to make some money on what we keep losing. So we'll keep you posted on that, but unfortunately, just the way the market is right now.
Questions? All right, about the monthly EIT and LST.
Monthly year-to-date EIT is $431,661, which is up from last year. This time was $414,000, and LST year-to-date is $50,436, which is up from this time last year, which was only $39,707.
Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go on to the police report. Is there anything you want to highlight specifically? Lieutenant?
There's nothing to add to that. Just as a side note, we are participating in the consortium exam next month and hoping to hire one more person off that exam.
Any questions for Lieutenant Jim? If not, we'll go on to the fire department reports.
There was no fire department report included in your packets, but Butch Daly, Vice President of the Fire Company, is here this evening if you have any questions for him.
How's it going?
We just did about 300 calls this week. We're a little bit behind where we were. I'm just here, but still busy as usual.
There's no other questions, we'll go on to the EMS.
The EMS report was located in your packets this evening. Just want to highlight that there were 20 zone calls for Hatfield Borough out of the 919 calls, which roughly estimates 2%, which is what we are at monthly for VMSC. But I also wanted to highlight that VMSC was recently certified at the expert level in pediatric care by the Pennsylvania EMS for Children. And that's a national program administered by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So the chief shared that with me. I think that's absolutely awesome, and he continues to do a great job growing that organization. So just props to them and the VMSC.
Any questions? Now we'll go on to our public works.
Sorry. Best thing to add, all the decorations are up and everything looks great. That's all I got. Good job.
I think it does look great. I drove around town before the meeting. I think it looks good.
I think it is a highlight for the area. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of stress off my back when it's all done.
All right, any questions for public works? How about our engineering report?
The engineering report was included in your packets. The only thing I'm going to highlight is we continue to work on the Broad Street storm sewer and North Main Street storm and sanitary sewer improvement project. Steve and I talk daily about when we can get this project out to bid. We're currently still held up with PennDOT and the HOP permit, as there are just some things that Hatfield Borough doesn't want to include in that permit, and we don't feel like we should include in that permit. That includes paving East Broad Street. We've been very vocal about that. That was on their 5-year plan. And we think they need to stick to that as being on their 5-year plan. We've had communications with them and they seem very receptive to that. Wasn't really sure how it fell off, so they're open to conversation. Steve has been out there with a gentleman from PennDOT, a representative. So the door is open and the conversation is open. We just have to get that pinned up, so we can resubmit the HOP permit. And once that's done, we can work to going out to bid for this project. We will also be looking at the near future. I just received from the solicitor this evening an agreement from the North Penn Water Authority, as we are in partnership with them with this project, as they're replacing the main on West Broad. So we have to have some cost sharing along with that, including mill and overlay of West Broad for certain sections. And so Chad's gonna look at that, and you possibly will see that next meeting.
It's a cost sharing agreement. It's actually good for both entities. And we're doing the bidding, so they just want to make sure we bid what they need and then we pay us back.
Regarding the PennDOT activities, there was a question before about rerouting traffic. That all get resolved?
That's part of the HOP permit. So including that is the detour, which seems that we kind of moved past that and they will accept that. Then it just came to the, hey, because you're doing all this work, you have to mill and overlay East Broad. And we were, no, you were gonna do that when you were doing North Market and Penn, which was supposed to be this year. But because we're doing a project, you agreed to push it off, postpone it, not cancel it. So that's kind of where we're at now. I think we're past the detour onto the mill and overlay.
Okay.
Once we get past that, I think we'll be okay, and then we can put the project up a bit.
Any questions? Thanks. About the zoning officer information.
The zoning code officer's report was in your packets. Nothing out of the ordinary. No notice of violations that were issued this past month, and he continues to do fire safety inspections and just general permits.
I see one on here for a pool, someone putting in the winter pool.
Yeah, and I was like,
I guess we get to jump on some, right?
yeah, maybe they got a good deal.
Yeah.
Black Friday special.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
How about fire marshal?
The fire marshal, report, he didn't submit anything for the packets. I know he did do a review letter for 23 North Main Street, for the Arbor Grove development. So that's, the communications that I've had him with in the past several weeks were just regarding that development.
And how about the pool advisory?
Pool advisory report was included in your packets. Just wanted to highlight, that they did seem to talk about the budget, looks as a proposed, 8% for residents and 4% for non-residents, and they're gonna meet in January of 2023 at the next meeting. So, be interested to see, I think it was a really nice job of how the summer went and what they're moving on for 2023. Just be interested to see what the residential rates and non-residential rates will come out for next year.
Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go on to item 11, the manager's reports.
Just to highlight a few items in my report, we're currently working with Edinburgh Square to kind of close out his escrows. In a sense, he's going to settlement on his final property. Might be next week, if not the end of this week, and he has requested escrow releases from utility engineers for the electric and escrow releases for the site work, which are to be inspected on Friday of this week. So we're working through that process, and before anything is released, we will surely consult the solicitor to make sure all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. And then for Bennett's Court, we're continuing to work on recording the plan and the developer's agreement. A question had come up from the developer, so we're working through that process, and hopefully we can get that resolved. Otherwise, it has to come back to council and just finish up the developer's agreement and trying to move forward, because he would like to get a shovel in the ground sooner rather than later, as I believe he might have started to come in 2018, I think. So that's going on for a while now. That's, just the updates for the land use and development. For utility billing, staff continues to monitor the electric and sewer past due accounts. For, the November due bill, electric was $33,000 delinquent. That's roughly what we carry a month, depending on if we can do shut-offs. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, but obviously we're in code blue now, so we cannot be doing shut-offs. And for the sewer cycle that just was due, $5,000 delinquent, which is pretty average, nothing extreme. Be interested to see what these delinquencies get to, come April, knowing that we cannot do any shut-offs over the winter. As Steve mentioned, the generator was commissioned. Utilities Committee will have to get together in 2023 to work on policies and procedures for the use of that generator. As we know that we can't just fire it up when there's a power outage. That's not how the intent of it to work. I think for significant power outages, that can be a conversation that we're looking into, but utilities will be working through that process. And hopefully there'll be some guidelines from other municipalities that also have the behind the meter generator. And AMP has some guidelines too that they can share of when they fire it up, how they use it for peak shaving. And so we're just gonna narrow those things down in 2023 at the beginning to get our policies and procedures for the use of that generator that we can post so the public is aware how it's being used and those things as well.
I'm sorry, you said Ann does have policies, or you're gonna see?
I'm gonna see if AMP has a policy, and I'm gonna talk to Ephrata and Percy, Blakely to see. I think ours might be a little bit different because of the megawatt that we have, the 2.7 can actually back up to 90% roughly of the borough. I'm not sure the behind the meter generator can do that in Ephrata or can do that in Blakely. So I think our policies might be a little bit different. I know AMP has guidelines of when they can and cannot turn it on based on peak shaving. They take care of that for us, but I think we need something a little bit more specific, that it's known that it can be used as backup, but when will it be used as backup, I think is the question. Considering all the steps that have to take place for it to be turned on and the safety and those things. So I think we're a little bit different. So I'm gonna reach out to AMP to see what they can provide for us. The public information coordinators report was in your packet. Just wanted to highlight two things that Borough will be opening an online store shortly for t-shirts, sweatshirts, etc. They're waiting for designs to come back from our vendors, so we're able to start advertising for the support of the 125th anniversary. So I know Rich can certainly talk more on it. You'd be surprised how many people come in the borough and want to buy borough sweatshirts and hats and gear. And I think that's a great idea for the committee to raise funds and to be able to support the 125th anniversary that the borough will be celebrating next year. So looking forward to getting that online store where people can come in and order, and also be able to supply those throughout the year next year up to the event to help sponsor that event as well. And a reminder that the volunteer appreciation event is Friday, December 9th, beginning at 5 p.m. And I included the 2023 estimated tax valuation in your packets. So that's all for my report, if anyone has any questions.
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
One of the residents had asked when the Edinburgh sign is gonna come down, because they said it's hard to see that intersection there because that sign is in the way. They also asked when the white line for the stop sign is gonna be painted.
Sure, so, right now, I don't have an answer on the sign. I know that, engineer's going out on Friday to do site work evaluation for the escrow, so I can have him ask when he's out there, like, hey, do you know when it's gonna be coming down? And the line striping and stop bar is a discussion that we are currently having between, ourselves and the developer.
Any other questions? All right, if not, we'll go on to new business and discussion items. So, we have several resolutions for service rules, A through E, correct?
Yes, there are a lot of them.
So I don't know if we need to cover each one of those. I think we're good.
Yeah.
The item F, the resolution 2022-37 recognizes Citizen of the Year.
So, resolution 2022-37 recognizes Joe Amorosi and Franconia Auto Repair as the 2022 Citizen of the Year, which was a great recommendation by Mayor Gerard that we had spoke about. Just want to highlight that Franconia Auto Repair has been in Hatfield Borough since 2003. They've made a positive impact on the community and currently host our Earth Day event and are significant in hosting our Fall Festival event and a great partner. Joe Amorosi currently serves on the Hatfield Economic Revitalization Outreach Committee. And in his spare time, he likes to spend time with his family and his grandchildren, and he is very passionate about fundraising for local charities and organizations. So I think a great business in the borough, a great owner in Joe, and really happy to have them on that. That's part of the Hatfield Borough team, the Hatfield Borough community. So just looking forward to honoring them in 2022.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting with Joe. If you didn't know, you would think Joe actually lived here. That's how much he cares about the community here. So he has
Yeah.
a business here, but he doesn't actually live in the community. But he pretty much acts like a citizen. Okay. Any questions about that? If not, we'll go on to G, the 2022-28 America's 250-year resolution.
So Hatfield Borough currently has a committee to get ideas and figure out how we're going to celebrate the 250th anniversary in America. The committee is Hatfield Borough and Hatfield Township together. Jason sits on that committee, myself sits on that committee, Larry Stevens sits on that committee. And there's representatives from Hatfield Township and also a gentleman named Frank who sits on that committee who kind of leads it. So we've got together over the past 6 months or plus to kind of talk about what the 250th celebration would be for Hatfield Borough and Hatfield Township to celebrate America, kind of things that we're going to be doing together. This resolution came about is if a municipality wishes to become an official partner of the America 250 PA, it has to adopt this resolution. And the resolution would allow Hatfield Borough to just become an official partner of that. They put out a newsletter, so we do us in the newsletter. We begin on all this stuff to just show that we too are committed to America 250. And America 250 was established by the governor in 2018, and it's to encourage development and coordinate the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of America. So that's on for consideration as an action item this evening.
Any questions? If not, we'll go to item H, advertising in 2023 budgets.
So, as Kate mentioned earlier, we have to advertise the budget 10 days prior to its adoption. It's proposed to be adopted at the December 21st council meeting. So this is an authorization for us to advertise the budget. We will advertise it in the reporter, and we will have I want to say copies available for the public when we're open for business to come and inspect the budget.
Question? All right, item I, payment request number 2, final payment for the 2022 ADA curb ramp project.
This is payment request number 2 for the ADA and curb ramp project in the amount of $16,015.50 to Drumheller Construction. This will represent a final payment to the contractor, and there is a maintenance bond that will expire 1 year from when this final payment is made for the project.
Questions? All right, item J, the COR number 1 for the 2022 roadway resurface project.
This is the change order request number 1 for the 2022 roadway resurfacing project. This change order is for reconciliation of installed quantities and the extension of contract times. The original contract price was $135,992, and the contract has decreased $33,516.38, which now makes the contract $102,475.62. So basically, it's just we have to do the change order request before we can pay the contractor any more money, and this is just decreasing the amount of the contract. I believe the reason the contract decreased, and Steve can obviously chime in, was Public Works took manholes and casting in-house, which we were proposed to do in the 2023 budget, which saved significant funds. And then there was also less base repair than what we projected for in the budget. And is that it or missing anything?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the two big savings there.
Questions? All right, item K, payment request number 2 for the 2022 road resurfacing project.
So payment request number 2 is in the amount of $554.83. This is just a payment for asphalt. So, I know it seems like a small amount of money and we still are going to owe them roughly $10,000, which would include, I think yeah, $10,247 for third payment, and that would be their final payment that we would make to them. They have to come back and finish punch list items that are on East Lincoln.
East Lincoln and Poplar and in front of the old train station on Market Street.
Okay, so this isn't gonna be final payment, but they have to reconcile their books for 2022. So, after talking to the engineer, we had agreed to pay them the $554 and change so they can reconcile their books for 2022, because they won't be able to come back and do the punch list items for work for us, obviously, till the warmer weather.
So then the remaining 10,000 will probably fall sometime in the spring, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? All right, 2023 business hours of operations.
So, we've kind of been discussing for a while now, or years, I should say, about the hours of operation for Hatfield Borough. We've had this discussion that, some residents have come in and expressed over the years that I've worked here, and I know Diane can attest to this, that, it's really hard for them to make it to the borough Monday through Friday, I'll say 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. because they work. We don't accept cash in the box outside anymore. They don't want to pay online for their electric because they include a fee, they're taking a service fee. It has just been brought to our attention that, and come up in conversation, asking if we would ever consider staying open late one night and, changing our hours of operation to say Wednesdays, we would stay open until 6 o'clock, but Fridays we would close at 3 o'clock. So that would give the working family the opportunity to come to the borough late night when staff would be here that could accept payments, we could process things, we would just accommodate the working family. So it was brought up and decided to place on the meeting just for an open discussion if that was something that council would consider or the mayor would consider to talk about the hours of operation for 2023. I think that it's not, to be honest, that we've had a significant outcry that we aren't open and accommodating. I don't want to give that persona that we've had significant outcry about that. But we do have people that just cannot make it and they work, and they would just like to be able to come in and talk to somebody instead of leaving a voicemail message. And we call back the next day and they're not available because they're working. A lot of times we run into an instance with security deposits, especially with people that are moving in. For 49% renter in Hatfield Borough, and you have to do your security deposit application in person. Can't pay over the phone. You could certainly drop your check in, but then we would have to process it. You have to come in and sign for it. So it just doesn't make it easy if it's not done in person. There are many people that actually had to take off work to come in. I know in speaking with Hatfield Township, because their hours of operation are similar. They are open Wednesdays till 6 o'clock, but they close Fridays at 3. I had a meeting with Aaron and I said, do you have positive impact, negative? What? Give me something. And he said, it's been all positive. People appreciate being open later to accommodate working families. Staff has not complained. Staff hasn't, made any comments. I did ask him, hey, do you notice more people taking off Fridays or more people taking off Wednesdays? Actually, because, hey, you actually get a couple hours extra if you take off Wednesday. And he said, no, he doesn't notice that. Like, it's not people are always taking off Wednesdays because they get out of, an 8-hour day when they would really be here long. So that was kind of one of the things that popped into my head. So it's just really a conversation about something you'd like to try on in 2023, just on a trial period, see how it works. I did have a conversation with staff about it, and all the staff were very supportive of it. They were actually, well, 2 of us, sometimes 3 of us, stay here till 7 o'clock, 7:30 on Wednesdays anyway for a meeting, so it would be nothing for us. The one question they did ask was, you know, we currently have hours of operation where we close at 4 and, to the public, but we really don't leave till 4:30. How would that look? Would we close at 6 to the public, or would we close at 5:45 to the public to give that like grace period? Because if a lot of customers were coming in at 4:25 and then someone would be here till 5 o'clock. So that was really the only feedback that they said, and I said in response, I think we just have to test it and see how it works. If people were continually coming in at 5:55 and we were paying you overtime until 6:30 or 7 o'clock, I think that would be a discussion that we can have. I think we have to test the waters to see if this is even a route we want to go down before we kind of make it like permanent or whatever. So just want to put it on for a discussion and feedback, looking for feedback on how you guys feel. If you think it's a positive idea and that's something that we can help the public out, I think we just want to be more accommodating. That's the real reason for it.
And yeah, just give some background too. I know, and I forget which meeting you brought that up when we first discussed it. You were, I don't want to say hesitant, but you really weren't gonna bring it up. It's something you guys have been talking about. And I think Rich and I were enthusiastic about it because, yeah, you know, oftentimes people have a hard time coming in during business hours to do work here. So we were all enthusiastic about it. So again, looking to get your guys' input as well too, but I think Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, we were both enthusiastic about doing that. So obviously Jamie had to work out some of the details, but you know, she's good with her staff. I have no doubt she'll keep them going. Get it. So is it Wednesday, you would stay up until 6 and then close earlier on Friday?
Yeah, so we would be proposing that Wednesday we would stay open until 6 o'clock, and then Fridays we would close at 3.
I got one question. What happens if a holiday falls, say Wednesday? Close as a holiday, 4th of July. What would you, I'm assuming you do some sort of adjustment that week, you know, late hours?
I'm not sure, I'm sure that could be spoken about. I know if the holiday falls on the day that we would be open to 6, we would just be closed that day because that's the day of the holiday. I don't know that we would be changing the hours. I think that would have to be talked about. That's something council would want us to consider, like, oh, if 4th of July falls on Wednesday in 2023, will you guys stay, late on Thursday that week? I think that could easily be a conversation, and I don't think we'd be opposed to it. I didn't really think about that. I just thought if it was on Wednesday, we're closed, we're closed. That's how it was treated in the past.
I'd say let's just keep it the same. If you try and flip flop schedules like that, I think it gets more confusing. So,
Yeah.
But, you know, and I think the probability of that happening, someone coming in on that day when it's a holiday, you know, I think that the chances are probably minuscule and it'll probably create issues. So I think we start and then we feel like we have to adjust it later, we can't, right? We can make that change. But I think, yeah, let's close. If it's a holiday and you close on it, we're closing on it.
When would council like to see this implemented? Because we would like to, obviously, if we wanted to move forward with this and change the hours of operation, we would just have to let the residents know. I mean, we just want to be transparent and open and let them know. I'm not sure if you have to vote on hours of operation, that it would be on next meeting. I think we might be able to change it. That's totally up to you.
I don't know that you know, it's not to vote on that, especially if it's just a trial.
Yeah. I don't think we'd have to either, but I think we start January. So
Yeah.
plan on that, you know, January, so we can put some notices on social media, let people know, and, you know, kind of hype it up and advertise that what we're trying to do. So,
Yeah.
I think you have to tell them both things. I mean, you hype up the fact that we're here later on Wednesdays, you know, but you also have to say that the office will be closing earlier on Friday. That way you keep your same work week schedule, and we're not paying overtime.
And people have shown up at 5 o'clock.
Right.
I'll work with, so thank you. I think staff appreciates that. And I think I personally think it's great for the residents. And I know we've had some questions in the past. I'm hoping to look forward to positive from this. I will let you guys know, and we can definitely test it out for 3 months and you see if we hear any feedback, anything, and just know moving forward, I will communicate to staff that right now it's going to be a trial period for roughly 3 to 6 months. We'll see, and then we'll see if we have any feedback from that. and I'll work with Lindsay of getting that, whatever I can out on social media, signs posted, those things to let everyone know, starting January 2023, these will be our new working hours.
Really shaking things up, right? Changing all the council meetings and changing their schedules, so.
Yeah. Nice.
Hey, can you make it at 7?
Yeah, I was actually here at 7 tonight, but I'll have to write that down, because I've been coming here at 7:30 for so long.
Yeah.
You get home roader now, right? All right, any other questions? All right, if not, we'll go on to old business, 2023 meeting dates.
2023 meeting dates are included in your packet. It was gonna be an action item tonight to advertise those, so they haven't changed much. The reason it's not is the planning commission meeting was postponed from Monday till, next Monday, the 12th. They just haven't had a chance to look at them. I'm not so sure they'll make any adjustments, but I just want to give them the time to vote on that and understand what the dates they're gonna commit to in 2023. So it'll be on for an action item, at the December 21st meeting, which is plenty of time to advertise because you only need 24 hours before your first meeting.
Kate, at some point, we have to have a conversation about how they came up with this one for 10 days and this one for 24 hours, and, yes.
The legislature, you never know. I would say 1 week standard for most things.
Yeah, you think, right?
That's why the zoning ordinance had to be published for 2 weeks, because they wanted to give it a longer period. You know? So, way it goes.
Yeah. All right, item B, the planning commission term.
Just a reminder that that Larry Stevens' planning commission term is set to expire December 31st, 2022. He is currently interested in being reappointed if that is something that Borough Council wants to consider, but that term does expire December 31st, 2022. So if that is something you're considering, I would just need to know so I can put it on the next agenda.
Do we? Okay. I'm fine with this. I think going forward, I'd like to start thinking when these come up, we probably want to come up with more of an advertising, let people know in the community that these are becoming available, and see if anyone in the community might be interested in being part of something, so.
Yeah, maybe because we have all the dates when they expire, so I can look at what's gonna happen for 2023. And maybe starting in, I'm just saying July, because that's mid-year, so
Yeah.
June, July, to say these are set to expire. If you're interested in doing this, turn in a letter of interest by X date, and then we could have the X date September, and then we move from there. So then even if someone's currently holding that seat, they certainly can submit a letter of interest as well. Yeah, we can implement that starting in 2023.
The other thing you might think about is putting something in the informer or out saying, the borough is run by its citizens. If you're interested in park and rec, planning commission, zoning board, please let us know, fill out this form that we're gonna have on the website or something, you know what I mean? And then you always have a list
Yeah.
of people, you have to go back to them and say, hey, you're still interested in being
Right.
on this committee, because now we have it open. And then you'll have people who express an interest and look for a good spot to fill them in.
And let's think about that for our communications,
Yeah.
committee that will start next week. All right, and I see the zoning hearing board alternate term.
So the zoning hearing board alternate term of Dan Rook is set to expire December 31st, 2022. He is also interested, he made contact with him, I believe, and he's interested in being reappointed if that was something that council wanted to consider.
I'm good with that. So put that on to the next one. All right, any questions on all business before we get to this age and a half of action?
Yeah.
Like we used to always want a consent agenda.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone always had the consent agenda, but I didn't think that was the consent agenda, so we didn't have to do every single one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was Ken's comment. Was
Yeah, it was the consent agenda.
all right. If nothing else, we'll get on to item 14, action items. So the first action item is to consider ordinance 547, amending chapter 7 of the Borough of Hatfield Code of Ordinances entitled Fire Prevention and Fire Protection to add requirements for residential outdoor fires.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none. This motion passes. All right, motion or item B, motion to consider ordinance number 548, amending chapter 2 of the Borough of Hatfield Code of Ordinances entitled Animals to add requirements for the responsible handling, handling and leashing of dogs and other pets. So moved.
Just hold on for a second. Did you say 548? I thought I heard you say 542.
548.
548. Just make sure we're passing it.
It wouldn't surprise me these days, so. Sorry, Councilman Fagan?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Fagan, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so the motion passes. All right, item C, motion to consider ordinance 549, amending chapter 27 zoning of the Borough of Hatfield Code of Ordinances to add requirements for the placement of collection bins.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so the motion passes.
So it's a reminder to Jamie to make sure we let general codes know. You know, so that they can, what they do right after you've had a convocation is that they put them off to the side as recently enacted. But at least it's up there online in case somebody wants to look it up.
All right, we'll go to item D, motion to consider resolution 2022-23, Larry G. Stevens, 30 years of service to Hatfield Borough Council.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none, so the motion passes. Item E, motion to consider resolution 2022-33 for Larry G. Stevens, 30 years of service to Hatfield Borough Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, we'll go to item F, motion to consider resolution 2022-34, David Weiss, 10 years of service to Hatfield Borough.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, G, motion to consider resolution 2022-35 for Stephen S. Spickers, 10 years of service to Hatfield Borough. So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, item H, motion to consider resolution 2022-36 for Jamie E. Snyder's 10 years of service to Hatfield Borough.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, motion passes. Item I, motion to consider resolution 2022-37, recognizing Joe Amarazzi and Franconia Auto Repair as the 2022 Citizen of the Year.
So moved.
Second. I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, we'll go to item J, motion to consider resolution 2022-38, supporting the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial America 250 PA. Did I get that correct?
I was gonna ask Rich.
Yeah.
You did, I thought so.
All right.
Not that one.
No. but- What's not?
I learned that real fast.
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion?
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cressler, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, item K, motion to consider advertising the 2023 borough budget. All right, Faye, you got that?
Second.
All right, I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilwoman Cressler. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, motion to consider payment request number 2/final payment for the 2022 88 curb ramp project to Drumheller.
So moved. Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? And actually, I probably should read the whole description. So it's Drumheller Construction Company Incorporated, the amount of $16,015.50. Apologize for cutting it short. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none. So the motion passes. Item N, motion to consider a change order request number 1 for the 2022 roadway resurfacing project to Bloomington Glen Contractors Incorporated to decrease the contract in the amount of $33,516.38 from $135,992 to a total contract amount of $102,475.62.
Make a motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilwoman Presser. Any questions?
Actually, I do have a question. It reads $33,516.38. It reads actually, and then in parentheses says 35,000. So I should maybe know that.
Supposed to be 33, I think, isn't it? Yeah. 33,000.
Yeah.
But the math works at 33,000.
Yeah, sorry, Brent.
Having made that change, any other question? All in favor? Opposed? There are none, motion passes. Item N, motion to consider payment request number 2 for the 2022 roadway resurfacing project to Blooming Glen Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $554.83.
I'll make a motion. Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? There are none, motion passes. All right, that list was long, but we got through it pretty quickly. So, are we having an executive session?
Yes, we are. Good. Talk about personnel litigation and real estate.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There better not be. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.